Chapter 18. Untrustworthy. Things were always a little rocky between Detective Kelly and the car dealership owner, Richard Kelly. Despite their lucrative partnership, the detective was always wary of Richard and his decidedly selfish and brash antics. Then again, Richard Kelly himself always knew that the superficial, dirty police officer would do just about anything for money. The news of some of Sandy Lopez's crew being arrested and Sandy himself having to flee the city spread like wildfire. In the chaos, some people wanted to lay their claim on the territory of Sandy Lopez, while others simply wanted to use this opportunity to get out of the game finally. Some citizens of the city were now experiencing emotions of fear and horror, while others felt glinting at the promise of new opportunities. For Richard, however, this was something else, as it opened the door to untold wealth. The previous evening, Richard Kelly was made aware of some news that shocked him about his go-to person, Detective Kelly. Richard was shocked to discover that the detective was also working with his main drug competitor, Sandy Lopez. Although at first he did not want to believe the news. However, the detective had informed him that he was now the only major drug supplier in the city. Richard's informant information was proven to be correct, that Detective Kelly was working with not one but two of his drug organization's rivalries. He now knew that Detective Kelly could not be trusted. Richard Kelly had years of experience dealing with underworld figures, and despite his brashness, he knew how to use subterfuge and the art of below-the-belt actions better than most. He was a man who had spies in places one wouldn't believe. His network of paid informants helped ensure his longevity in the illegal drug business. His entire network was decentralized. No spy knew about the existence of any other. He had 10 different people verifying everything, and none of the 10 people knew about anyone else. Richard had watched empires rise and fall, yet he would remain like a voyeuristic force of nature of sorts. Detective Kelly himself was unaware of the car dealership's owner's informants watching his every move. The detective was not the only dirty police officer in the city. Others had noticed the detective's unknown source of wealth and wanted to acquire some riches for themselves too. Richard Kelly was a smart business person and believed in checks and balances. He made sure that he had leverage when he needed it. However, he never made others aware of his intentions. Richard would even use extorting tactics if it would help him sell his drugs. The thought of Detective Kelly's betrayal made Richard more upset because he believed he could be trusted. Repeatedly, he had chosen not to believe some questionable things about the detective. However, traitors had no place in Richard Kelly's organization. The detective was now a wild card, and Richard quickly thought of a plan to dispose of him. He would tell Detective Kelly to meet him at a new location to pick up the vehicle he had promised him earlier. Richard Kelly called the detective. He was going to take the wild card out of the game. "Detective Kelly," he said joyfully. "I had a change of plan regarding your new car. We're having brand new cars delivered to my new car dealership as a token of my appreciation. I want you to have your pick of any car you wish directly off the trailer. I wanted you to be the one to pop the cherry on this new dealership." "Ha!" laughed Richard. Detective Kelly wasn't too quick to respond. The past few days had been chaotic, to say the least. From the murders, to the burning people, and the organization that had seen their rise and collapse. Therefore, he noticed that Richard's offer being out of the man's character and could be a setup.
"Sure, I'll meet you at the new dealership,"
Detective Kelly said, trying his best to sound enthused, but being incredibly suspicious. The detective had recently lost some potentially lucrative opportunities because they were too dangerous to keep. The city's illegal drug businesses were in a transition period, and power was changing hands. It wasn't a suitable time to be rewarded this soon, and highly unusual, he thought.
"Please provide me with the address and time. Also, thank you again for the generous gift,"
said Detective Kelly. "Not a problem, Detective," Richard replied. "I will text you the address and the cars will be delivered at 9 p.m. tonight. Just pick the car and my staff will give you the title and keys. Thanks again for what you've done for my business." Both men ended their phone conversation. Richard Kelly called his other go-to person, the enforcer, Sal Antonio, with instructions on how to dispose of Detective Kelly. He knew by killing a police officer, it would only be a matter of time before the police and federal government would be investigating Detective Kelly's murder. However, he had a contiguous plan for a situation like this one. Richard had already purchased a beautiful villa in Costa Rica. That country had tight extradition laws. He also established offshore accounts years ago and had taken several solo trips to his property over the years. It was time to clean house. He had lost a trusted friend and made an enemy while conducting business in this city. Richard decided it was time to turn the page and retire among sunny beaches and beautiful villas in a location where there was eternal summer. He called up his go-to person, who picked up at the first ring. "Sal, we have a problem. You know that detective has been playing both sides of the fence with us? That pig has been working for our competitors and us long enough. His actions cannot go unpunished. I need you to take care of this problem for me tonight." Sal Antonio smirked at the thought of finally getting rid of the police officer.
I never trusted that fucking pig. How would you like me to handle it, boss?
"I believe you should take care of him the same way you did Alcea Adams. Just make sure his body is not on our property when it's discovered," Richard replied.
It will be my pleasure to kill this disloyal man for you. It will be done as you instructed.
Sal Antonio put down the phone and began to prepare for his mission. Hours later, after the call, Detective Kelly had a feeling that something was not right with his new meeting change of location. The fact that Richard Kelly was giving him something on a silver platter for nothing was puzzling. If anything, it was time for him to lay low. It was just something in Richard Kelly's voice that had him uneased. The detective had been playing both sides so he could always come out on top. However, he now realized that the only way one would ever win in this dirty game was to be the one that made the rules. This time it was clear that he was in way over his head. Detective Kelly decided to enlist some help, making sure that the help was as uninformed as it needed to be. So Detective Kelly decided to send Police Officer Cynthia Brown in his place.
Officer Brown, I have a favor to ask you,
said Detective Kelly.
I was supposed to meet my informant tonight. He is going to provide information on a new shipment of drugs coming to the city. However, I have prior commitments and they changed the location of the meeting. Can you meet with the informant for me?
Cynthia, being the ever-optimistic police officer, could never have refused such a request, and the detective knew that.
Sure, Detective. Just give me the location and time. Should I have a backup police officer to assist me?
Asked Police Officer Brown.
No, this should be a routine gathering of information. However, if something doesn't feel right with you when you arrive, simply leave the location and call me,
informed the detective. Cynthia Brown was a bit concerned about that last comment. However, she brushed it off as a regular precaution. It was risky, both for the police officer and the informant, to meet each other. Anywhere, she thought. Of course, suspicion would invite skepticism and caution. This was more cautionary than the former.
Will do, sir. And thank you for allowing me to assist you in this case,
she said, and packed her things before getting up to leave. Cynthia Brown arrived at the meeting location under the cover of the cloudy night sky. It was at Richard Kelly's new car dealership that was still under construction. She parked her undercover police car and walked towards the back entrance of the car dealership. Much of the dealership construction was completed. However, there were still some areas under heavy construction. The only lights working in the facility were inside the showroom. Cynthia noticed a man walking towards her and at first thought he was her contact. She was in her plain clothes with her badge and gun well hidden. Therefore, she had no fear for her safety while meeting the informant.
Hello?
She called out, but the man didn't stop or even respond. He was gaining on her, getting closer and closer, and with each step, Cynthia grew nervous. Sensing that something wasn't right, she immediately pulled her weapon, thinking that this might be an ambush. However, before she could determine the danger of this situation, the unknown man started firing his weapon at her. She was hit with bullets in her chest, leg, and arm as she ran for cover. Cynthia was grateful she was wearing a bulletproof vest that evening. She had prepared herself prior to this meeting because of the detective's comment about the potential of this meeting turning in the wrong direction had bugged her. Although the vest had protected her vital organs, her leg and arm were still wounded. She moved as fast as she could to avoid the bullets. Cynthia was holding her good hand over the wound on her arm and trying her best to keep the weight off her injured leg. She managed to hide in an office. However, Cynthia was leaving a blood trail for the man to follow. She was trying her best to stifle her screams while hiding. She managed to hide in the corner of an office and pulled out her weapon. The man confidently walked into the office where she was hiding, trying to get in close to kill her with one shot. However, before he could complete the assassination, Cynthia aimed her weapon at the man and pulled the trigger. She shot the man in the stomach. The unknown man then dropped his gun and screamed in pain. He dropped to the floor with a loud thud. Cynthia tried to get in close as best she could, with her vision fading for the kill shot. She got close enough to finally see the man's face. He was unfamiliar to her at first. The man started cussing at her in what seemed like Italian.
Pisa de merda!
He screamed.
Cazzo e de fede!
Cynthia Brown managed to get to her feet and aimed her gun at the man. However, before she could pull the trigger, the man yelled,
Futiti, you were not supposed to be here.
She recognized him, even with her faded vision. Bang! Cynthia Brown shot the man at close range. It was someone who worked for Richard Kelly's car dealership. This man was connected to Richard Kelly Ford and Nissan.
Thank you so much for hanging out with us. If you had fun or picked up anything from this episode, please assist us by hitting the like, subscribe, and notification buttons. You can also comment and share our content. These small things really help our channel and mean a lot to us. Also, special thanks to our Patreon supporters. You guys are the heartbeat of this channel, and we can't thank you enough for being so generous. If you would like to join our Patreon community, please click on the link below. You can contribute as little as $5 per month. You can get all kinds of perks. You can even buy merchandise of your favorite characters at our shop store. Click on the link provided below. That's going to do it for now. Until next time, remember you are cherished by us. So be kind and know that we consider you as family.